Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an NPC bodybuilder. Today's guest is Tyler Cohen. Tyler, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, man. Appreciate it.
For sure, Tyler. So excited to chop it up with you today, my man. I've got a couple of questions I like to ask all of my guests. The first question is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
Oof. It's got to be Lee Priest, Flex Lewis, Phil Heath for sure. Those are definitely like my top three in that order.
Why Lee Priest?
I think he has such a very just beautifully made physique. I really like that he's just got like crazy grainy muscle bellies, and he's got a really tight waist, just really big legs, really big shoulders, big arms. I think he's just very well put together.
Very cool. And then why Phil Heath?
He's just massive. he's just one of those bigger guys. He just looks really massive, and he just also looks very well put together.
Do you think Phil is the greatest Mr. Olympia of all time, or do you have somebody else in that category?
I mean, I think most people would still say Ronnie was the greatest of all time, but I'm gonna be honest. I think Phil could give Ronnie for a run for his money.
I like it, man.
That's just my honest opinion.
Yeah, no, I like it, man. We're just here to keep it real and chop it up, and that's cool. So, Tyler, at what age did you start lifting weights, and then why did you start lifting weights at that age?
I started lifting weights when I was 15. I was in like my freshman year of high school. So it was after my first season as a high school football player. And I thought, well, if I'm at that time, I was like 100 and maybe 150 pounds. So I needed to like gain some weight. I needed to get stronger. So I figured, well, this might be the best way to prepare for the next season, especially if I wanted to make the varsity team. So I spent every winter in the high school weight room, just lifting weights, just trying to get bigger.
Perfect, man. So talk to us about where you grew up, some of those younger years, the childhood a little bit. You mentioned football. Talk about maybe some of the other sports that you played, family dynamics, up to about high school, and then we'll move on from there.
Well, I was born in New York City, near Grand Central Station, and then I lived in Guttenberg, New Jersey for most of my childhood up until about my last year of middle school. So my last year of middle school, I moved into Tenafly, which is in Bergen County, New Jersey, and then I started high school then. So I guess I get a lot of my good habits from my childhood, I guess from my parents, like my bodybuilding habits, because I always grew up eating good food. You know, on Fridays, Saturdays, Sunday nights, you know, my dad or my mom was always cooking something good. They were always cooking either steak or chicken or, you know, some kind of vegetable, you know, other good carbs like rice and potatoes. And I just kind of grew up on that. You know, I didn't really drink soda a lot as a kid. So I grew up just eating those foods, you know. In my younger years, like before football and all that, I played baseball. I was a hockey player. When I was young, I played ice hockey up until I wasn't a peewee leaguer yet, but I got into a lot of trouble playing ice hockey because I was always like getting rough with everybody else. So I was always in the penalty box. And then, ice hockey, baseball. And then like, I stopped all that until I got to high school, because in high school, I wanted to really play football. And then, you know, leading up to then, I thought, well, I'm 150 pounds, so I need to put on some weight, especially going up against guys that are like, you know, a few inches taller than me, and they weigh a lot more than me.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Now, talk about your parents a little bit more, outside of kind of just, you know, that clean food and stuff that you ate growing up. what other impact or influence did your parents have on you? Was it anything in terms of like discipline? Was there anything that they kind of said to you growing up that still kind of is at the forefront of your mind? What else did your parents instill in you, Tyler?
Well, my parents were really like no nonsense type of parents. I lived a pretty strict childhood. It was somewhat fair, but like, they were really hard on me, so like just certain things like I mentioned before, like I would only like to drink like a can of soda on like the weekends or something like that. And then you know, I would have to, so a lot of the like a lot of the other things that like some of the other kids are doing, like I really wasn't allowed to do. Like I wasn't allowed to be out late. You know, other kids are just like running around rampant like throughout the night, and I wasn't allowed to do that. So, I also, I grew up in a Jewish household, so I was going to synagogue every single Saturday. I was going to Hebrew schools, every Sunday. So my weekends were packed with that, aside from like whatever I was doing at school. That kind of slowly like ended, like when I got to high school, but like, that's what my childhood kind of consisted of.
Any siblings, or are you just an only child?
No, I have one brother. We are 4.5 years apart, and he's younger.
Okay, cool. Very cool. So, when you were kind of growing up, getting through high school and stuff, was your focus solely on football and being like a professional athlete, or were you thinking about something else post high school?
It was primarily to be like a professional athlete, but I slowly began to realize through high school that that probably wasn't going to happen. And I think, yeah, it was around my senior year where I kind of realized that, like, yeah, this is probably not going to happen. So I think there's something else I need to like look at here. But real talk though, I got into bodybuilding while I was in high school. So like I had the main focus was to be a professional athlete, but I kind of used bodybuilding, I guess, towards my advantage for that. So around when I was 16, I kind of like stumbled upon it like by accident, and I wanted to do my own research, like, oh, how can I get bigger? So I was like, okay, I typed in like chest training on YouTube, and all of a sudden I see Branch Warren train chest. I'm like, okay, fine, let's see what that is. And then when I see it, I'm like, yo, what the fuck is this, man? Like, are you serious? Like looking at this dude, like that's like mostly like everybody's reaction, you know what I mean? But like I was just like, all right, well, this guy's huge, eats a lot, trains hard. This is clearly what I need to do. I'll use that in order to, maybe play football like after high school. So after like I was looking to play college ball, I was getting looked at by a couple schools, whether it was all the way from Division 3 up until like Division 1 AA. But my heart wasn't in it by the time I graduated high school. I realized my heart was in the weight room. And I was like, I think we could try this bodybuilding thing out. And so I kind of like made that decision where, well, I'm not going to go to college to play football. I'll go to, community college, and I'll do that, for now, but I want to pursue bodybuilding.
Excellent. So, before we kind of get into all things bodybuilding, obviously it's hard to make a living, from bodybuilding and things like that. So, what did you study in college, and what were you thinking about doing in terms of paying the bills, and how did that kind of go?
Well, I went to community college right after high school, but then I think it was after my second year I dropped out of college, and then I got a job at a gym a few towns away from me. I worked there for, I think it was like I worked there for like 2 years, and then I kind of just tried to find other ways to make money. And then I slowly realized, well, this might not really work out. So now I'm 28 years old and I'm actually about to graduate with my bachelor's degree. So right now, like what I do for a living, I work as a security officer. So I've been working in security for around like 5 years actually. Yeah. So that's what I've been doing to make my money. So I've been doing that while I've been in school this whole time. So I started back in school when I was 23. So now 4.5 years later, I'm about to graduate. And I'm looking more towards the finance industry, once I'm done with school.
Awesome, man. I love hearing that. That's super cool. Now, you said you really got into bodybuilding in high school. Did you do your first competition in high school then?
No, it was after high school. So I did my first competition when I was 19.
Talk to us about that first competition. Did you do it on your own? Did you hire a coach? What was the experience? And then why don't you just kind of start unfolding your competition history, some of the highlights, maybe some of the heartaches, and we'll transition from there.
Yeah, sure. Well, my first competition was when I was 19. I did the Mid-Atlantic Natural Classic. And I did that. I met a bodybuilder who trained at a gym that I used to train at. And he offered to coach me. And I was like, well, I'm not going to pass that up. So I let him coach me. He kind of like showed me the ropes of bodybuilding, which, I really appreciated. And I went from doing the Mid-Atlantic Natural to doing the Atlantic States. And then I did the Garden State. I ended up winning all the teen classes in all three of those shows. And then I went on to doing the NPC Teen Nationals. And I placed second in the light heavyweight class against Cody Montgomery at the time. So that was pretty cool. So around when I was 20 was kind of when I did like my first like real off season. And that was like, I was like, all right, well, I feel like I kind of got my feet wet here and I'm also like pretty good. Let me try doing something like, the open class. So when I was 21, I did the Muscle Beach contest, and then I did the New Jersey State Championships for the first time, and I won the heavyweight classes for both of those for both of those shows, and I just missed the overall by by that much. Later on, and then a few weeks later after the Jersey State, I did the IFBB North Americans. That was the biggest wake-up call for my bodybuilding career, because I got there and I got backstage and I looked at all these guys. I'm like, these guys are for real. It was an eye-opener. So did not do well at that show. I ended up in like the 5th call out. Oh yeah, so I was way washed up in there. So that was 2015. And then 2016, I was like, all right, well, I think we kind of need to kind of tighten it up here. So I ended up switching coaches. And with my current coach now, I did the North Americans. I did the Jersey State Championships again in 2016. I won the heavyweight and the overall at the state championships. And then I was in the first call out at the North Americans. I placed 8th. So that was really cool that I actually got to be in the first call out from going from not even placing in the last show. So picked it up there. After that, we decided to do it again the next year, and I placed 5th. So I did the North Americans, I think 5 years in a row. So 17, I placed 5th. And then in 18, I kind of moved over. I needed to change the scenery. So I thought I would do the first Toronto Pro Qualifier. So if you've heard of the Toronto Pro Show, they Canada, I guess they changed their league around that year. So I was able to do their pro qualifier because I guess NPC athletes were like allowed to do it. So I was like, hey, we might as well do that. My coach is also Canadian, so he was like, yeah, why don't you come up to Canada and compete? And I was like, why not? So I ended up winning the heavyweight class at that show, and I missed the overall by that much. And there was one pro card being awarded. So I was like, oh, you know. And then I went down. Then 12 weeks later, I did the North Americans again, and I placed third. So then I took a break, I guess, in 2019 through 20. That was like, you know, when COVID was like going on, and I kind of needed to assess some things. You know, I was like, okay, well, my bodybuilding career is kind of going where I want it to go, but everything else is a little bit behind. You know, I realized like, oh, well, you know, I'm still in school here. We need to kind of like push that forward. So I took, you know, a 2-year break from bodybuilding to, you know, get my work life handled, my school life handled. And now we were finally in the right place to like go back and do that. So after kind of not being a bodybuilder for almost 2 years, you know, I did the Jersey State Championships again. I placed second. And then we went out to do the North Americans again, but I was in the second call out. So, I mean, coming back from not being a bodybuilder, I feel like, that's not bad, but we need to kind of like move forward to, we need, start winning again. Well, not winning again, but, higher than that. So now we're kind of looking towards the nationals for next year. We just kind of need to be a little bit more sharper and a little bit more bigger.
Very cool. So a couple things I want to pull from you, from what you just shared, Tyler. The first thing is, and this is more for, just the listeners out there, maybe some of the younger athletes, but you said that your bodybuilding career was kind of going in the direction that you wanted it to, but there were some other areas in your life that were falling behind. And that's kind of when you said, hey, I've got to start pushing my education forward. Talk about how you came to that reality, because I feel like a lot of bodybuilders can be delusional, okay? And it's like pro card or nothing. And I understand if you want to be great at anything in life, you have to have that mindset, right? But the reality is that, a very small percentage of people make a great living specifically from bodybuilding. So talk to some of the listeners out there, maybe some of the younger listeners, or just some of those delusional people that are listening, in terms of how you came to that realization that, hey, even though my bodybuilding career is going in a positive direction, I need to take a look at some other areas of my life. How did you come to that conclusion? And then what words of wisdom can you share with some of the listeners in terms of, hey, like, there's more to life than just bodybuilding, even if you are a pretty solid bodybuilder? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. Because in reality, what I said before, so my bodybuilding career was going in a positive direction. But the thing is, I wasn't winning. My highest placings are like, yeah, I was in like the top 3, which is fantastic. But like, all right, well, I'm still an amateur. I'm not making any money off of this. I'm losing more money than what I'm making, obviously. So, all right, we need, what's going on over here in, I call it the real world, you know what I'm saying? So I was doing fine in school, but I was like, all right, well, I feel like I'm taking too long here. So we need to shoot this forward so we could get back on track with bodybuilding. Because if I have no money to support that, then forget bodybuilding altogether. So I needed to make sure that I was, taking enough classes so I could, finish school in a decent amount of time. Because it came to a point where I was just like, all right, well, I'm taking a few classes, I'm dropping 1 or 2 classes a semester because I can't handle the workload. And it's like, all right, well, I get that there needs to be a balance, but sometimes you got to kind of let some things slide in order to push something else forward. And it's very necessary. At the end of the day, like I'm not saying that school is for everybody, but in my life, this was important to me, and this is what needed to be pushed forward. So I took a break, and I wanted to take on more of a workload. So that's what I did. I took I took as many classes as I could in a semester, so I could be like, okay, well, now I'm out of community college now. I did what I needed to do there. Now I can go on to university, and I could finish school. And at a university, going from community college to university, the grading system, your workload, it's entirely different. So anybody thinking that a community college and a university is like kind of like the same thing, it's not at all. So now being in a university, and I'm towards the end, now I feel great, because I'm like, all right, well, I'm at the finish line with that. Also too, make sure you could like support this really expensive hobby that we sometimes call a job. That's not really a job all the time. But this is kind of like for the guys that are really trying out there. Like, listen, you can do both. You could have a job, you could go to school, you could do this also. Like, it's all possible. There again, like you said, there is a small percentage of these guys who really do well. And listen, that's great. But for others, you might have to work a little bit harder. It is what it is, and it can be done. Listen, there are 24 hours in a day. It's the key to all this is time management. You have to learn how to manage your time. And guess what, dude? You're going to end up waking up really early sometimes and going to bed really freaking late. That's just what happens here.
So, did you kind of stop training altogether then during your 2-year break from bodybuilding, or were you kind of still getting after it in the gym? What did that look like, Tyler?
I was like in and out. I was in and out of training. I was in and out of, eating properly. Like, to tell you the truth, I was a mess. So I was trying to figure out, like, all right, well, we're on a break here, or am I going to do this? Am I going to do this? Do I really want to even do this anymore? Excuse me. I was kind of fighting those emotions in my head for a long time. And let me tell you something, it was not easy, because in my head, I'm just like, well, you don't want to stop, but like, you gotta be here right now. But, like, are you really disciplined? And I kind of like, during those 2 years, I kind of found out what the difference between being disciplined and being highly motivated. So I realized, being disciplined is, doing this stuff whether you like it or not. Because I'll tell you what, there are a whole bunch of times where, where I'm going through a prep and I don't freaking want to do like cardio and sit on a bike for 45 minutes. That's ridiculous. But I do it because I want to get to a certain point. Other people sorry, not other people, but on the other side of that, you sort of hear or you read on Instagram saying like, oh, I can't wait to do my 45 minutes of cardio and all that. And it's like, that's great, but you're doing that because you're looking forward to it. You know what I mean? Some people are like that. Some people hate cardio and then they just do it anyway. I think that's the difference between being highly motivated and disciplined. So I realized that there are a lot of things I just really had to get over, like, because during those 2 years, I was just like, yeah, I don't really feel like going through this again. I don't really feel like, being on a treadmill for that long or doing all this. And then the other side of me is just like, yeah, well, you also want that trophy, so why don't you just do it? So that's kind of what I was going through. So once I felt I was in a good spot with school, my job and everything, I was like, all right, well, suck it up. Let's get back to, trying to win a show again. So I was like, all right, cool. So I called up my coach and I said, listen, I need an off season and I need, I want to get ready for a show. Let's kick it back up again. And let me not take a break ever again, because I don't want to go through that. You know what I mean?
So what was the ultimate pull for you, Tyler, to come back into bodybuilding and come back into competing? I know you mentioned something about the trophy, but I'm sure there was probably something a little bit deeper than that, right?
Yeah. Well, this is who I am. Well, not all of who I am, but it is definitely a big part of who I am because I revolve my entire day around this bullshit. So I just realized I was just like, listen, man, like I love doing this. Do I like it all the time? No, but that's just something like I had to get over. At the end of the day, it really truly is about being disciplined and not highly motivated. I don't want to do all this like all the time. There are some days where I'm just like, man, I am too tired and I do not want to be in the gym right now. But guess what? You gotta do it anyway. So, we suck it up sometimes. And there are days where I love being in the gym. I love being there. That's a big part of who I am. I used to, don't get me wrong, I had more energy to do it when I was 19 versus now when I'm 28. But like now it's just like, yeah, but we still have work to do here and it's got to get done. And we still have the same goal. So let's get there. I would also ultimately hate, or if I was just like, I'm stopping, that's it, I'm retired, but I never finished what I set out to do. So that was also a big thing.
What's that end game or that end goal that you set out to accomplish with bodybuilding?
Oh, I'm taking this all the way to the Olympia for sure.
Excellent.
That's it. I know you're smiling right there, but like
No, it's a good smile, man. I love the confidence, dude.
no, that's really what I think about myself. Like at the end of the day, like I may not be there right now, but I know I will be there. I know this stuff does take time. This is like I can't stress this enough that this is not a race. Because believe me, I've been there and I've tried, don't work. This is not something that you could do within 2 years. Like this really does take time. And at the end of the day, like it takes a little longer, for some than others, Some people really just respond really well to this. Some people, you have to keep learning your body, year after year. It just happens. I was one of those people, you know. I like every prep that I've done, completely different. Nothing was the same. But that's the thing, we keep trying and we keep going at it. So right now, like, yeah, I'm at the part where I'm still trying to, earn my pro status, but like I'm always looking towards like, okay, this is where at like step 5 out of step 10. Step 10 is obviously the Olympia. So I have my short-term goals, which is the getting my pro card, but the long term is obviously like most other people is like let's get to the Olympia, that's the end goal. Like I don't know, whatever with anybody else says, that's it.
Love it, man. Do you write your goals down, or are they just kind of more just in your mind?
I don't need to do that. I know what they are. I think about them way too much in order for me to just have them be like, oh, I need to look at them on the wall because I need to remind myself. No, I always know what they are. Like I said before, you know, I was on a break and I kind of and I guess, I forgot because I didn't truly want it that bad, but now I'm here and I want it. So that's what I think about from the second I wake up to the second I go to bed.
Who's your coach, and why did you initially back in 2016 decide to go with that coach?
My coach is Darren Melling. He's a Canadian coach, and so he's a Canadian coach. And Darren Darren's a little different. Darren works mostly with girls. So I've seen what he can do with girls, and I was really, really impressed with that. So I was like, hey, well, hey, what can you do with a guy? Like he's obviously worked with like a couple other guys, but like, not, I mean, to be honest, nothing really like me. But anyway, um, I wanted to see what he could do with me, and I think it's worked out really well so far because every single year up until this past contest season, I've been in better condition. I've always put on a few pounds of muscle every single year, and my placings got better every single year consecutively. So I was like, all right, well, I've been with this guy for like almost over 5 years now. We're talking. So I keep it going with him. Also, we have a great relationship outside of bodybuilding too. You know, like I consider him like one of my good friends. You know, he's a little bit older than me, but like that don't matter. But at the end of the day, why I stick with him too is because he does look out for my best interest. He is a little bit more on the conservative side, like, you know, with like supplementation and all that, which I kind of do appreciate, because we kind of are, you know, I hate to say it, but we're kind of in a climate right now where, you know, people are dying. And I'm not saying I know what the cause of that is. I'm not saying that, you know, supplementation or anything like that, you know, will have something to do with that. But, you know, we all speculate and come to these conclusions. Well, you know, maybe, you know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, at the end of the day, you know, he's a really good guy. You know, we keep in touch like throughout the year too. We even because he always did my preps, but I always did my off season on my own. So I would kind of always keep him in the loop of things, and we would keep in touch throughout the year. And then when it came time the contest season, he kind of just know what's going on, and then we can kind of just transition, which is really good. So yeah, really, you know, like I said before, like in the beginning, I was really impressed with what he could do with girls, because he could really dial them in really good. And from my understanding, it's harder to dial a girl in than a guy. So I thought, hey, well, I might be a little bit easier. So why don't we work something out?
Makes a lot of sense. Now, something I want to ask you about, you kind of alluded to it there a little bit, but just health and bodybuilding, right? You've been doing this since you were a teenager. You've almost a decade. Even though you're super young, you have some wear and tear on your body just because you've been living the life for almost a decade. What do you do, Tyler, or what do you recommend to some of the listeners to keep up on their health and pursue their bodybuilding dreams?
What's the saying? You know, don't pull a cart before the horse and all that. Well, yeah. Well, so let's put it this way. So in my younger years, give or take, when I'm like, you know, through like 19 all the way up, and I guess till I was maybe 24, 25, I was always trying to lift a house. And that, you know, that worked for a few of those years, but not all the time. I kind of created some injuries from like doing things like that. Like now, I'm not saying like, oh, don't lift heavy. No, that's stupid. Like that's ridiculous. My thing is, it's like, if you're going to do that properly. You know, this being like the lifting aspect. You know, I've tried to, you know, put like, you know, four plus plates on an incline, and then I end up straining my pec. I've strained both sides of my pecs at least 3 times, both sides. And it came to a point where I was like, all right, well, maybe we kind of need to try something new here. So I'm not saying I revamped my training, but I've definitely tried to take it more serious, in a sense of like, I really, really slowed things down. And what I mean by that is, when it comes to like the actual reps, I take them as slow as I possibly can. I'm focusing on feeling the weight more. I'm not always trying to like go by like, okay, well, I put 3-4 plates on this side, so good, I'm getting strong, and that's all right, I'm all right with that. That kind of stuff doesn't really matter to me like much anymore. Because let's put it this way, like there are some days where I'll be training chest, or I'll be training legs, and I'll be in a hack squat or something, and I have like 3 plates versus 5 plates, and I feel the 3 plates more because I've been concentrating on it more. And then also, yeah, to the health side of it too, you know, are we like getting into like gear and all that stuff like on this?
You know what? If you want to talk about it, you can go for it. I don't usually bring it up, but it's your story, man. You say whatever you want to say. It's cool with me.
Well, I mean, let's put it this way. To be honest, you know, that's another thing. Don't pull the cart before the horse. Like, I've tried so many different things, when I was younger, trying to, be better than the next guy or impress some girl that like don't give a shit. I've been there, and all I want to say is like, you don't have to like do things like that. Sometimes like, like especially like during a prep, because there's more of that than there is in an off season. Taking six different things is not necessarily like a good thing. Sometimes you can't even tell, what's doing what. You know what I mean? So I feel like, looking back, I could have done less. I'm doing, probably like a third of what I used to do. But I guess that comes with, that just comes with time and learning and all that, like, when I was younger, obviously I was a little bit more immature. Now like I've learned a lot, and now it's like, well, I'm more comfortable now than I was back then. So I guess that has to, somewhat do with the health aspect of this, aside from like, oh, don't train too hard and eat too much chicken, stupid shit like that. You know what I mean?
Right, right. Blood work, things like that. Is that something that you are a huge advocate of?
100%. Yeah, I get my blood work checked regularly. Sometimes I get it. I don't get it too often during my off season. I don't think there's so much of a need. I'm barely using anything anyway. But during a prep, I would get it done almost like 2 to 3 times at least during a prep. Because I feel like during a prep, your body is under so much stress as is. Because in reality, like most of us are like, all right, well, I'm not there yet, so we'll bang our head against the wall until we get there. You know what I mean? Off season, things are a little bit. I mean, whatever. They're obviously way more relaxed than they are during a prep, because at least like, all right, well, if we're feeling something, like we'll handle it, and we'll move, and like we'll work past it until we move on from it, right? During a prep, that's not really so much of an option because we are on a serious time limit.
So, talk to me about anything else in terms of like health and, longevity in terms of like, you get body work done, chiropractic work. Just talk about some of those extras that maybe, we just get so focused on the eating and the training, but there's so much more to the lifestyle of bodybuilding than just those two things. So are those kind of a big part of your bodybuilding as well, Tyler?
Um, I honestly, that's I guess the one fault I have. I don't get a lot of body work done. That's like I guess something definitely I got to do better with. It also like it is like a bit of a chunk of change to like do that sometimes. But the way I guess I kind of handle preventing injuries is that I do take time to stretch. I do like if I am feeling something, I will get it handled. Like I won't leave it lingering. I guess that's also like what has helped me throughout the years, is because like I've never um tried to like truly like overwork trying to get past something. Like if like let's like I've told you like I've straightened both sides of my pecs 3 times. Like listen, if that's what happens, I'm not going to train chest for a week. Like it is what it is. I've popped my hamstring a couple times. Like I've never torn anything, knock on wood. But if I felt like I've done something wrong, like I'll get it handled. So like I'm not a regular on doing body work, but let's put this, but like if I have some trouble, like I will get that handled.
Perfect, man. So, let's talk about, somebody that is maybe they're in a position of looking for a coach, their first coach, or maybe they want to change coaches. I know you've been with your same coach for 5-6 years, so maybe that's what you're going to say, like people need to stick it out and stick with one person. But what would you suggest for somebody that is maybe looking for that first coach or looking to change coaches? Do you have any advice or suggestions?
I'll tell you what, looking for your first coach is definitely the hardest. So because And when you're in that position, you know so little. So at that point, if you know some people, then you might want to obviously like ask them for their opinions, especially if you do trust them. But if you kind of like are alone, in this, like I was like I kind of met my first coach by chance. I was alone in this. I didn't know anybody. I had no idea. And at the end of the day, like it worked for a little bit, but at the end, it didn't work out forever. But that's okay. But for those of you who are looking for like a decent coach, especially like your first one, try to get to know some people. You have to like feel people out, like learn to like, I know like you're kind of coming from very little knowledge of all this, but like try to do some research on your own too. So at least like like if somebody's saying something that doesn't seem right to you, you might want to like stick with that gut feeling. You know what I'm saying? And also too, don't be that person that's always trying to like go from coach to coach to coach. At the end of the day, like let's put it this way: if your coach looks at you in your face and tells you, "Oh, I'm gonna get you from here to here," he's lying. Not only that, like, and if he's not lying, he's an idiot, because nobody can tell that. Also, so if you really do feel like you have to switch coaches, make sure you have a really good reason to do that. Because at the end of the day, like, if it's been a short amount of time, you may not have given that person a chance to to learn your body. And not only that, like, you may have not even learned your body, because at the end of the day, like, he's telling you what to do, or she, whatever. And you might have not given not only that person but the relationship a chance. I had to switch coaches because that relationship was gone. So just obviously try to stick to your gut, but do your own research. If something does seem wrong, you might want to trust it.
Great advice, man. What's something within the fitness industry, bodybuilding industry that let's just say ticks you off, or something that you really hope changes soon?
You know what? Honestly, to tell you the truth, not a lot. I mean, like, because we could all sit here and say, like, oh, this point fingers, oh, this person's fake, that person's fake, this person doesn't know what they're talking about, or like God knows what, like the same stupid shit that we've been hearing for years now. Honestly, like that stuff doesn't faze me a lot, only because like I've been one of those people who marches to the beat of their own drum. So like if that's you, okay, cool, fine. I'm not really gonna pay much attention, but hey, you do you. Go ahead, go crazy. I think people need to kind of learn to do that. I think people need to kind of forget about who you're associating yourself with. Because I've had a lot of conversations with people in the industry where they're like, oh yeah, my friend, you may have heard of him. His name is Sean Roden, or like something like that. And it's like, I know what you're doing. We obviously both know who that guy is. God rest his soul. I'm sorry. But you know what I mean? They're trying to uplift themselves with using somebody else's name. That's probably it. That's the one thing that definitely ticks me off about that. It's like, okay, cool. I know that guy's cool, but who the hell are you? That's kind of like what I'm trying to say here.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I even some people that have been on the podcast, they'll name drop is what we call it, right? And it's like,
yeah.
And just the way they put it, it's like they're kind of like, look at me because I know this person or whatever. It's like okay, whatever. Like
it's like, okay, I'd rather talk to that guy.
I'm having a conversation with you. Like it doesn't really matter if you know this Mr. Olympia or this famous prep coach or whatever. But I definitely get exactly what you're saying there. So
yeah.
How has social media, specifically like Instagram, changed bodybuilding or kind of changed the way people approach bodybuilding from your personal perspective, Tyler?
I think for the younger generation that's kind of turned for the worse, I see a lot of people posting things that really don't deserve a lot of credit. I guess I'm a little bit younger, but I kind of did grow up in that generation where social media was kind of new to bodybuilding. So like at the time, me personally, I didn't give a shit about Instagram or Facebook or any of that crap. I just wanted to lift weights. Then it turned into like, oh no, you gotta like promote yourself. You gotta, you gotta take a video every couple sets. And it's like, I don't really care about doing that, man. And I'm gonna be honest, that's like something I still, I kind of still think about too, because I'm not great with social media. I think at the end of the day, like, if you feed too much into it, it will ruin you. But that's the thing, you have to learn, like, okay, what's real, what's not real. Because at the end of the day, people can promote themselves any way they want through a picture. Because you're only seeing like my little screen right there, you're only seeing what I wanted you to see. You don't see everything else. That's reality though. Like a lot of yeah, wow, I guess I could say that. Yeah, a lot of kids nowadays are, promoting themselves like, oh, look what I did. They're taking their shirts off like in the middle of the gym. It's like, stop doing that, man. Like in, I don't want to say like in my day, because I can't really say that, but like back when I was kind of like their age, like if somebody saw you doing that, that would be it. You'd get grilled for that. Now it's like, oh yeah, look at me. And then the other kid, like from across like the dumbbell racks, like, oh no, yeah, I'm gonna get in it too. It's like, what is this, man? Stuff like that. It's just like, dude, you need to like work on yourself and actually be credible before you start doing whatever that is.
Right, man. It's definitely there's definitely positives and negatives to it. So where do you I don't want to use the word inspiration, but where do you kind of draw maybe some motivation from, or where do you kind of gain your strength from in terms of like what's going on internally? Do you have like a mentor? Is there somebody maybe on social media, another bodybuilder that you really look up to? Where does that internal drive come from for you, Tyler?
I'm self-motivated. Not to put a negative thing on, like, there's things you see, the videos you see on YouTube, like bodybuilding motivation or anybody else that puts out any YouTube content or anything like that. Because let me tell you something. I spend some of my free time watching other people's YouTubes, and it's great content. It's great. Does it motivate me to go to the gym? No, it doesn't. Because at the end of the day, I know why I got to go to the gym. We talked about this earlier. I want to get my pro card. I want to get to the Olympia. That stuff is always stuff that I'm thinking about. I'm self-motivated. I'm also disciplined because, like I said before, there's stuff that I really don't care about doing all the time. I know I got to do it though. So at the end of the day, like I pretty much said it right there. I don't need an outside source to like get it ingrained into my head that, oh, this is what you got to do because this is cool or whatever. I kind of more watch that just for my entertainment. I like bodybuilding, so I'm gonna want to watch that stuff. All those YouTubers and like fitness people, like I like watching that stuff. It's cool. It's almost like reality TV. Does it make me motivated? No, not really, but it's good content. So like, why not? I would hate to like, I'm saying that because like I would hate to make it look like I'm bashing those people because of the way I think, but that's really not it. I just have my own way of why I want to do this stuff. And if that's their way, that's great. Because like I said before, like, hey, I'll sit there and watch that for 30 minutes. That's cool. Why not?
Absolutely. Who are some of the or what is some of the content that you consume on YouTube? I'm curious. What are some of the guys, the fitness influencers or even IFBB pros that you like to watch train?
I I watch Fuad Abiad's podcast a lot. I like watching like guys like Brett Wilkin train, Flex Lewis train. I watch old videos of like Flex Lewis train. And like I even watch like, guys like Chris Bumstead. I like the content, dude makes great YouTube videos, I'll give him that. It's great, so who are other people I like to watch? Yeah, like even guys like in the UK, like Kuba Kielin. Like I like watching him. Do I care truly like for him as a bodybuilder like as much? Not really, but I like the content that he puts out. It's fun to watch. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, dude, I was watching a C-Bum video before we jumped on here, dude. I think Chris is a great dude. Obviously, I don't know him personally, but just through social media and having some of his friends and stuff like that on the podcast, they just say great things about him. But you're right, like the content, like Calvin, the dude that does most of his content, dude, like it's the best of the best. It's entertaining, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like I'm gonna give him credit. Like that stuff is really well put together, and it's almost like you're watching like a TV show. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, hey, like I'll watch that for like 20 to 30 minutes if I've got the free time. Like, absolutely.
For sure, for sure. So I want to go back to you getting your degree. You said you're kind of moving in the direction of finance. How did you kind of come to the conclusion that you have an interest in that, or is that something you've always had an interest in?
Not always. So since going to school in general, when I was getting back into community college, I always wanted to study business. So I majored in business administration all through college. And then when I was actually able to pick a concentration when I got to the university, I chose marketing. And the reason why I chose marketing is I felt like I'm not sure what I want to do with it, but I know this is a versatile degree. So there are probably like a few careers I could use this for different things. You know what I'm saying? So I thought I was like, all right, well, I kind of want to get into an industry where I feel like I can, make a good living. So I thought I would get into the finance industry. Do I necessarily care much about finance? Not truly, but I felt like, all right, well, it is a good industry to get into. There is money in it. You know, at the end of the day, like I'm not a person who's like, oh yeah, I gotta like what I do in order to keep going with it. Like, no. This is supporting what I want to do outside of this. So yeah, I'm gonna keep going with it. So I figured, I could be like an investment analyst, or I could get into something like KYC, which stands for Know Your Customer. I could also, I can get into like I wanted to, I guess, get into like the investment real estate aspect of it, but be an analyst, not like the actual like housing development and all that. So I felt like right now, being that I'm like towards the end, these are the types of jobs that I kind of want to get into. Like if I have to go to the city and work, like I'll do that. That's fine. Like it is what it is. At the end of the day, if it is going to support what I truly love here, then I'm going to do it.
Makes a lot of sense, man. That's super smart. What in terms of like career business wise, what is kind of like the goal that you have? Obviously, there's the bodybuilding, and hopefully at some point maybe you can do that full time and make an income. But I think it's always smart to have multiple revenue streams coming in. So what is your business goal for the future?
Well, so let's put it this way. So on the bodybuilding side, my ultimate goal, like aside from getting the Olympia, getting to that point, is to win shows. And I want to win shows so I could collect multiple checks. So that's the bodybuilding side. I felt like, okay, well, if I could collect, a few checks every year, that's like 30 grand a year in my pocket. So that's the bodybuilding aspect. Outside of that, the end goal past, like, I guess the corporate world, because I don't want to be in that crap forever. That's ridiculous. I want to get into more like I want to make more passive income. I want to get into, later on, I want to get into like real estate. I want to, buy and sell houses, rent out apartments. I want to, that saying, make money while sitting on your ass, like type of thing. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of where what I want to get into. I'm trying to work on, like learning how to invest properly, whether it's like, real stock market or crypto, whatever it is. I'm just trying to learn right now. So that's what you get on the bodybuilding aspect and the outside aspect. At the end of the day, I kind of want to make it so that, like, I don't have to go to New York City 5-6 days a week. I don't have to, I don't have to get up like at the ass crack of dawn to be on a bus, to be wherever, you know what I mean? I kind of would like, ideally, I would like to do everything on my own time. I would at the end of the day, like to do something that I'm truly interested in. I'm only saying that I don't care right now because I know it's what I have to go through right now. But at the end of the day, like, I don't want that. I don't want it to be like that forever.
Makes a lot of sense, man. I'm right with you with the passive income, dude. You want to make your money work for you and not work for your money, right? So we're gonna kind of wrap things up here. Couple of final questions for you, Tyler. What has bodybuilding taught you in the last 9 to 10 years that you've been involved in it?
You're not gonna like everything about, you're not going to like everything about the process, but it is necessary. And that's whether it's bodybuilding or anything else. At the end of the day, like, you do have to do things that you don't want to do. And that's just life in general. It's not necessarily going to be fun all the time. And that's saying, like, that's with whatever you want to do, whether it's bodybuilding or you want to be a butcher or some stupid shit, whatever. But at the end of the day, if it's something you truly want, you got to do it, man. If you think about it from sun up to sundown, you better get on it, man. Because, like, you will feel terrible if you're just like, I'll stop, and then you're spending the rest of your life wondering what if. And I don't want that. So if that had to be like one thing that I took away from bodybuilding and used it for all other aspects of my life, that would be it.
Love it, man. So this is kind of a fun question. Best bodybuilder from New Jersey of all time.
Of all time.
Yep.
I'm trying to think. Who do I know from New Jersey that's a bodybuilder? I know Akeem Williams is from Jersey. He's really good. Sean Clarita is really awesome, and he's from New Jersey. You know what? Actually, I have to go with him. I gotta be, because let me tell you something. I'm not saying I've met Sean a whole load of times. I'm not saying I know him like quite personally, but from what I was able to see his career unfold from before he really started competing as a pro. And, like, I just remember him kind of just being this, this really short dude. He turned pro as, like, I think like a lightweight, and we're all wondering, like, all right, well, like, what are you going to do with it? And then all of a sudden he's a 212, Mr. Olympia champion. And honestly, I have to say he is the greatest bodybuilder in New Jersey, because it's just like, who realistically I don't know anybody else from Jersey who goes from being a lightweight like that to all of a sudden, he's the guy. You know what I mean? And honestly, I give him so much credit. I believe he deserves all the credit in the world, because, like, he has done such a great job. And I, like, like you say, like, I'm proud of him for it. You know what I mean?
100%. He's actually come on the podcast, and I mean, to have a Mr. Olympia take time out of their crazy schedule to chop it up with, this guy that has a podcast in Iowa, like, just, I was humbled, man. Like, he took the time to respond to me on Instagram, came on the podcast, gave me an hour. It was cool. What do you think about Nick Walker?
Nick Walker is, let's put it this way. The guy did it. You know what I mean? So you could say whatever you want about the guy, but at the end of the day, he's doing things that most of us would want to do at this age. That is the God honest truth. That's the only reason why I didn't pick him over Sean was because Sean really because Sean was always so like this small, and now he's the dude. At the end of the day, Nick Walker did have like a similar, situation here. Like Nick was never small. He just got really, really freaking big. And, and at the end of the day, dude, listen, power to the guy. If he's doing it, he's doing it. And he's got everything to show for it. So there's, you could say whatever you want about him, but he's doing what we all want to do.
100%, man. Have you ever competed against Nick in the NPC or not?
Yeah, just once.
Okay.
So it was in 2017 at the North Americans. I placed 5th and he placed 6th.
Ah, there you go.
Things probably would be different now, but hey,
right. But still, though, it's cool, man. I love having you guys come on, and some of the guys that aren't pro yet, they've competed against guys that are pro, and it's cool to hear the stories, man. It's cool to hear kind of behind the scenes, and some of those guys that you maybe you've beat in the amateurs, now they're pros, and now it's all cool. It's all fun for me. I think it's really fun for the listeners to hear that stuff too, my man. So Tyler, I just want to say thank you for coming on the podcast, chopping up with me, man, sharing your story, sharing some of your life experiences. Before I kind of wrap things up on my end, if you have any final thoughts or any final words that you want to leave us, go ahead. And then also share where people can find you on social media.
Well, for the social media part, my Instagram is @tcohen34, so you can find me on Instagram. But now, just to kind of end things, so I really do appreciate you having me on. This is my first podcast. I'm not exactly the best speaker, but this is cool that we've now I've kind of given myself an hour to kind of open up about things. And, again, I really appreciate you taking out the time and having me. This really was a really cool experience. I really did appreciate, and I like talking to you. You're a nice guy. Thank you.
Hey, man, you're very welcome, dude. And that's kind of my heart, man, to get some of these big name pros on, get some of the guys that are up and coming, some of the coaches, and just chop it up and have you guys share your stories. So you're welcome. Thank you again, Tyler. For all of you guys, really quickly, did you share your Instagram? What's your Instagram?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, @tcohen34. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I wanted to make sure we got that out there. And then just for all of you listeners, or those of you that are tuning in on YouTube, you can always find all the guests' Instagram in the show notes. So if you want to find that, you can just go down and click on that. They'll take you to Tyler's Instagram. So once again, all of you on YouTube, all of you listening to another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I just want to say thank you. I hope you guys are enjoying and having a great holiday weekend here in the States. It's the Thanksgiving weekend, so I hope you guys are enjoying time with friends and family. A few quick things as we close this out, just a few favors I would ask of all of you. First of all, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That's really important because I release all of these episodes of Behind the Muscle podcast first on the YouTube channel, and then I shoot them out to all the other podcast platforms. Sometimes I release 2, 3 episodes a day. I'm going to be releasing episodes all this weekend. So if you want to stay up on the current in terms of Behind the Muscle podcast, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also on YouTube, hit the like button and go down in the comment section. And why don't you please just leave a comment, leave maybe a takeaway from what Tyler shared with us today, your favorite part of Tyler's story, whatever you'd like to share. I love reading those comments in YouTube. And then finally, I just want you to take this episode specifically, share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Tyler and tag Behind the Muscle, just so we know that you listened to this episode and you found value in it. That's a great way for other people to find the podcast, listen, and be positively impacted. And that's really what I want, is people to share their stories on the podcast, people to listen, and people to be positively impacted. And then finally, as usual, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. I'll catch you guys later.